We are the Ministry of the Real Truth, and we came across this particular video, part of a mini-series in the public domain, public access. It was freely available there, and it has this license to it, Creative Commons license, and it says Attribution Non-Commercial 3.0, and it has these three indicators here. We aren't too sure on these things, so we're looking at the Creative Commons .org license, and it says it's Attribution Non-Commercial 3.0, unported WC by NC 3.0. This is a human readable summary of and not a substitute for the license. Disclaimer. So we are free to share, copy and distribute the material in any medium or format, adapt, remix, transform and build upon the material. The licensor cannot revoke these freedoms as long as you follow the license terms. Under the following terms, which are indicated under the video, exactly what they are, and there's no additional restrictions, but you can't apply legal terms or technological measures that legally restrict others from doing anything the license permits. And it has notes, but no warranties are given. The license may not give you all of the permissions necessary for your intended use. For example, other rights such as publicity, privacy or moral rights may limit how you use the material. Okay, so we're hoping that we don't get a copy strike on YouTube for showing this small portion or the entire part 1 in this particular series. So we're looking at, okay, it's basically the same. And this video here is saying Creative Commons licenses provide a standard way for content creators to grant someone else permission to use their work. YouTube allows users to mark their videos with a Creative Commons CC BY license. If you mark your video with a CC BY license, you retain your copyright and other users get to reuse your work subject to the terms of the license. We're not too sure how to do this, as we said, but here is the Creative Commons licenses. Yeah, we're not to make money off it apparently. We can use it freely, modify it, but it's not for commercial purposes. So we believe we had every right to show a portion of this particular series without gaining a copyright strike. The only way to find out is to create or modify portions of this to get our message across and see what happens. Here's hoping for the best that we don't get a copyright strike. If you like this short video, then subscribe to our channel, give us a like and share it with your family, friends, neighbours and others. And don't forget to add your comments down underneath the video in the comment section so we can get back to you on those as soon as possible. Let's have a look at this.
Tonight's talk is consciousness, creativity, and the brain. And if you have a golf ball size consciousness, when you read a book, you'll have a golf ball size understanding. When you look out, a golf ball size awareness. And when you wake up in the morning, a golf ball size wakefulness. But if you could expand that consciousness, then you read the book, more understanding. You look out, more awareness, and when you wake up, more wakefulness. It's consciousness. And there's an ocean of pure, vibrant consciousness inside each one of us. And it's right at the source and base of mind, right at the source of thought, and it's also at the source of all matter.
There is no matter as such. All matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force which brings the particle of an atom to vibration and holds this most minute solar system of the atom together. We must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious and intelligent mind. This mind is the matrix of all matter.
Then would that not be evidence of a creator, an intelligent design created by an intelligent designer, i.e. God?
Matter seems like a good place to begin. The solidity of the world seems totally indisputable. As a fixed thing that you can see and touch, your body is also reassuringly solid. But beginning with Einstein, modern physics has assured us that this solidity is a mirage.
All of physical matter, everything we have around us, is the result of a frequency. And what that also means is that if you amplify the frequency, the structure of the matter will change.
So, on our other video, we showed a whistleblower talking about having the keys to all these doors, these departments where he was working, where he discovered the greatest weapon ever made. Is called a direct energy weapon, and he claimed that's what caused the Christchurch, the Dunedin in New Zealand earthquakes. They basically point a beam at a certain location. This is what we are assuming from the information, and bam, a disaster happens. They point it somewhere else, bam, that disaster happens, and so forth. So, is this what they're talking about? That if you amplify a frequency, the structure of the matter will change. So if you amplify this frequency, then you point this particular weapon at a geographical, a certain or allocated geographical location, and you use it, set it off, it will change the structure of the matter, or it will do something to that particular geographical location and cause earthquakes, floods, etc. Is that what they're trying to say? Or could that be the possibility? A possibility? And then they show an example. So there's a force
The film
behind
you're
it,
about
right?
to see has no characters, it has no people. It is a film to describe to you and explain visually the effect of cymatic frequencies on texture, structure, water, oil. You will see many things that answer many questions. You will see living forms, living amoeba, almost animal-like creatures. You will see continents being formed, the earth itself coming into existence, explosions, eruptions, atomic explosions and bombs. You can see all this and watch it before your eyes. But everything owes its existence solely and completely to sound. Sound is the factor which holds it together. Sound is the basis of form and shape. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. We are told that this is how the world began and how creation took shape. If we put that into the modern idiom and say that into the great voids of space came a sound, and and matter took shape. Please watch carefully.
Okay, so someone in the comments put down here, and we found it quite interesting, stating, although they're an avid speaker of sound, it is connected to word, which is connected to speech, and linked to speak and spoke as in a will. He's an avid speaker of sound. It is connected to word, which is connected to speech, and linked to speak and spoke as in a will. We can link spoke with hub and word, and also the spoken word or the spoke and word. Not too sure about that spoken will. I think it means speak, right? Speech, uttering something. And he also knows from experience that it's consciousness that creates sound. It's your thoughts that create reality, and reality. It's your thoughts that create reality, and really sound is not a solution in a world where people are looking for answers. So it's consciousness that rules the day and night. He makes the wheel and he makes the woe. I kill and I make alive. Let the weak say I am strong. It is one thing to say something, but one must look into what saying something is really implying. Yeah, that's true. You have to stop and think what you're about to say, ponder it, make it go round and round in your head, and then before you utter it, make sure that that's what you want to come out. Because words could have dual meanings, and you might mean one thing and another person takes it the wrong way. You can say I am strong, but it is your belief in that you are strong that takes you from weak to being strong. Your internal talking, your inner conversations, yes, are talking to you, and that is the story you tell yourself daily. Change the story and your world changes. Let's say you're the director of a movie, you create the movie, you dictate how it goes, and according to you, the movie happens and produces an end result. But you must believe in what you say, and to think about something will always come back before the sound is created. First thought, then sound. Your thoughts form your reality. Your thoughts, beliefs, and emotions create reality. Period. Sound is a result of consciousness of thought. That is God. You are as gods of the Most High. Sound is woven together with our mental diets. Now your inner sound is an entirely different story altogether, for truly we create reality without words. And there's supposedly a link to more on that. Others say it's incoherent, rambling nonsense, and all this sort of stuff. Okay, and here we acknowledge that this particular TV series was uploaded to a certain site by KilluminatiTheMovie, and it has these Creative Commons licenses. All acknowledgement goes to that publisher, KilluminatiTheMovie, and way down the bottom here it actually says somewhere before these reviews, credits. So we give credit to KilluminatiTheMovie production, if that's what we're supposed to do according to those Creative Commons licenses. Again, we are not sure how it works, but we believe we shouldn't concur a copyright claim or copyright strike.
We can also use different shapes of plate. Here we have a triangular plate with a crystal attached to its underside and produce a sonorous fit. We change to a higher note and see a rather more complicated figure.
let's examine this. The Bible is encoded with deep knowledge, and depending on your level of understanding, you would either get the real meaning behind it or not. Well, we beg to differ, because if you have modern, Americanized English versions coming from a certain source, and they're supposedly been translated from the original Aramaic or Hebrew into Old Germanic, and then from there into Old Latin, and then on to Middle English, Old English, Middle English, etc. And they were corrupted down through the centuries and so forth, but you're not actually getting it from the original ancient, very old Aramaic, Old Testament manuscripts in the sacred scribal language of God, that which he spoke to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, apparently. The Shana Articus of Prayer, which is of the original ancient, very old, long dead language. Tav Asheret, which is the sister language of the original ancient, very old Hebrew, another long dead language, i.e. the Tav Ivri. Then you don't have the real meaning behind it. Okay, from that original language translated into the nearest English equivalent, you don't have the actual real meaning of it. So your understanding will be vastly different and correct, because if top scribes, monks, theologians, scholars, religious leaders, etc., have tampered with those original manuscripts, and they have this hidden motive, or this agenda, that you have to follow what they dictate, so they completely ignore the original ancient Eastern theology and terminology in favour of their Western terminology and theology, in order to keep you numbed and dumbed and be able to control you. And then if these people are out there preaching, teaching from these modern Americanized English translations or interpolations, which are incorrect, corrupted, etc., then you are not giving the real meaning behind those texts. Of those texts, you are giving a falsified version, a corrupted version. That's why we present you with the original ancient, very old Lishana Articus of Prayer, the sacred scribal language of God, and the Tav Asheret, or the ancient, very old Aramaic, translated into the nearest English equivalent by a native-born Aramaic-speaking filmmaker translator, Victor N. Alexander, from Mesopotamia, Syria, who's had at least 20 years experience translating both the Old Testament manuscripts, the Tav Asheret, and also the New Testament manuscripts, hidden and preserved for over 2,000 years by the Apostolic Church of the East, when the disciples Thomas, Addai or Thomas, handed over these texts of what they witnessed the Christ do in his era, what he said, what he did, miracle-wise, etc. They handed over these manuscripts to these appointed priests of that church, who then hid them from Emperor Constantine, the Roman Catholic Church, who wanted to, the state empirical church, who wanted to get hold of them and destroy them and then get rid of the people that had them. So, due to an argument between Nestorius and Cyril wanting to be the bishop of all bishops and knowing that Nestorius would be, rather than him, started to create lies. And then it was all over Nestorius saying, well, the Christ has two natures, both human and divine, i.e. hypostasis. So this guy started calling him a blasphemer, a heretic, all this sort of stuff. So this Apostolic Church of the East, when they said, well, we're not Nestorius founded church, we just acknowledge him because when he said, we talked about hypostasis, we'd been following that belief for over 1,000 years before he came along, that Christ was both divine and human. He had two natures. So they got labelled heretics, blasphemers, and they're given crap throughout the centuries, persecuted, murdered, martyred, and they fled to different areas with those ancient texts, and they kept to those rituals that they were taught, those traditions, etc. They were taught by the beloved disciples, and they have ever since, and still being persecuted today by different factions. That's why a lot of them have fled Syria and gone to America, etc., etc., and are thriving there. So they say here the Bible is encoded with deep knowledge, and depending on your level of understanding, you will either get the real meaning behind it or not. So we just explain it. If you take the Bible literally, word for word, that there's an invisible sky daddy, okay, this is a bit of tongue-in-cheek here, looking down on us, then he can't help you. This person in the video can't help you. The Bible is not just a fairy tale, it is our guide to life and full of scientific facts. Even though Brita or Genesis doesn't really go well, according to science, they didn't need to. The evidence was there. So they just says things like, in the Brita especially, or Genesis, in the Brita in Aramaic or Genesis in English, when translated, stated about a pre-Adamic man. Let's say a Cro-Magnon man, because Neanderthal came later. We had that nicely pointed out to us. Where he says Neanderthal man, it was probably Cro-Magnon or something like that. Right? A pre-Adamic human being, male and female, before the human being Adam and Eve, and Cain and Abel. Okay, so it's like a guidebook. It's a manual full of God's commands, laws, precepts, principles that he requires man, whom he created, to follow. You don't have free will if he says you have to follow it this way, you have to follow this, you have to do this, you have to do that. That's not free will. But he has given you choice. He has given man choice. Follow, be rewarded, i.e. eternal life, etc. Or feel my wrath, my anger, because you rejected me, you rejected my son, and you follow your own ways. You did all this wicked things to yourself and to other people, and you pushed all these wicked claims, right? Because you love living that way because you're so full of lust, etc., etc. This is according to the scriptures, right? And you sought to reject God, the Christ, etc. You blasphemed. You tried to trample it underfoot, all this sort of stuff, right? So you're off to oblivion. You're going to perish. And here's the consequences. Here's where you're going. Whose fault is that? Not his. It's yours, because you chose to go in the opposite direction. This is why the house of Israel, the Israelites, the Hebrews, etc., got the punishments that they got. Why other people, other nations, pagans, etc., this is the reason why they were all wiped out, because they were told, and prophets were sent to them by God, and they killed them in rebellion. So he says, well, if you're not going to listen, I'm going to wipe you out. Here's the punishment, here's the wrath, here's the consequences for your actions. Some, like the Ninevites, they woke up and realized, hey, everything that Jonah is saying is true about his God, so we're going to smash all our maypoles, Ishtar idols, etc., whatever they were worshipping, and we're going to don sackcloth, we're going to throw dirt all over ourselves, even our animals, and we're all going to believe in the God of Jonah. And then the king wrote it down on clay tablets in cuneiform, and apparently underneath there was Aramaic. Okay, so later on, Assyria is, Nineveh, etc., is invaded, and things are destroyed. But it's all a God's plan, because in the end times, apparently, he's going to use Egypt, the Assyrians, and Israel. It's all in the scriptures. They're part of the big plan, right? Like Christ said that Judgment Day, the Ninevites, he's saying this to the Pharisees, they're going to judge you they're going to be the ones judging you, because you rejected me, the Christ, who was standing right in front of you. You're looking at scriptures trying to find me, and yet here I am standing right in front of you. It talks about me from the very beginning, apparently to the very end, the last book, right? Revelations 21, 22 or something like that. Okay. So throughout it's talking about me, and here I am right in front of you, and you don't believe me. You're calling me a blasphemer and all this sort of stuff. You want to put me to death, all of that sort of stuff. It's not so much your will, it's God's will, because he has to be the sacrificial lamb to die on the cross, be resurrected for the sins of mankind, so they can come back to God. He is the way back to God, because sin has separated man from God. There's a big chasm, right? Divide, a great divide, that no man can come back to God. The only way back to God was through Christ, who is that bridge back, that way back. Okay, he's the only way. So everybody else out there, feel free to waste your time with your religions. Okay, thinking, oh yeah, I can do this, I can get tassels on the end of my shoes or shoelaces or on my hair or on my clothing. I can do this, I can do that. Yeah, there's a sure way to get into the kingdom of God. If I make sure my dish is clean on the inside, and then my plates are clean, and all this sort of stuff, that's going to get me into the kingdom of God. No. Someone's lying to you, so it's time to wake up. And the way to wake up is to listen to, watch our videos, because we are the ministry of the real truth, and we are here to bring you the real truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. No hype, no fluff, or any other silly nonsense. Okay, just the real deal. From these original Old Testament manuscripts in the ancient dead language, translated into the nearest English equivalent, the Lishana Artica Cypraea of the Tav Asherit, which is the sister language, the ancient sister language of the Tav Asherit, the Tav Ivri, or the original ancient very old Hebrew. Not today's modern Ugaritic, Canaanite, modern Israeli Hebrew. Okay, it's very different. Everything is rabbinic. After Christ was gone, it all became rabbinic. These rabbis had their different ideas, and everybody followed suit, and now everybody's following those claimed famous or popular rabbis in what they had to say. Okay, they're rejecting Christ, etc., where Christ said, if you don't have me, you don't have access to the Father. Okay, so you're on the wrong path. Okay, so we will continue.
We use sand and lycopodium. The lycopodium moves to the center of the fields and takes up circular shapes. The sand forms the lines. Each material has its own special way of behaving. Lycopodium alone, a sonorous figure, transition to a mobile flowing phase, and back again to the figure. The sonorous figures represent stationary waves. But now we can also observe moving waves. Here the sand is flowing in a current.
What is it that drives the rotational effect in our galaxies? What is it that drives the rotation of the planets? What is it that drives and impacts the rotation of Earth?
In vibrating glycerin, we see continuous waves which form the queerest figures. And yet, the extraordinary things we see here are simply and solely the effect of vibration.
Now, what we've seen up until now are single signals, single frequencies projected in the matter. And what you're seeing here now are interference patterns of two or more frequencies resulting in a pulse. The pulse of the human heart, the pulse that drives the blood through the veins in your bodies. What is your heart responding to? Where does that pulse come from?
Ah, the sand is shifting because of her voice. Whatever that is. Wow. Oh, wow. So that's what that was all about. It wasn't just a nice piece of artwork, it was actually something behind it.
Quantum physics has revealed what ancient masters knew. Matter does not exist. The concept of substance arose from the philosophy of Aristotle. And from that concept came science's conception of matter. The fact of the matter is that the substance of the universe is consciousness. Belief that the substance of the universe is matter leads to what I call a fear-greed dichotomy. As people in their quiet desperation attempt to accumulate as many material possessions and riches as possible. In fact, the substance of the universe is consciousness. Therefore, it is behavior that is important.
Behavior rather than materialistic objects or materialism.
The daily life we perceive with our five senses is not reality. Quantum physics has shown that space and time are illusions of perception. Therefore, our bodies cannot truly be a reality if they occupy this space.
Ernest Rutherford performed an experiment in Manchester
Apparently a New Zealander.
that revealed to him the shape of
Don't know.
the interior of an atom. Scientists were shocked to discover that the atom
Not sure
is
now.
almost entirely empty space. The question then became, how could this empty atom possibly make the solid world around us?
Our true consciousness does not exist in our brains or in our bodies. But this illusion of our individual bodies, along with the misinformation of our true origins, has manifested the idea that we all think independently from one another. With this misunderstanding, it would seem impossible to scientifically explain telepathy, clairvoyance, spiritual mediums, and other phenomena dealing with transferring information between sources without physical means of communication. But when you understand that there is a common spiritual bond between all things in the universe, and that we are all part of one divine intelligence, no phenomena is unexplainable. The blank matter within the most basic building blocks of perceivable existence is malleable and molded by intent. This means that consciousness shapes our reality. This seems difficult to accept for most, and it is quite understandable. In modern times, we are taught from an early age how to think rationally and tangibly. This is a very left-brain method of education, and it has more harmful effects than is given credit for. The left brain deals with logic, details, facts, patterns, practicality, science, and math, as the right brain deals with feeling, intuition, symbols, images, risk-taking, philosophy, and religion. With a deliberate push for government-controlled educational curriculums, generation after generation of the youth are being taught to focus only on the facts, figures, and numbers. Repetition is used to train children subconsciously to accept what they're learning. Children are rewarded for questioning the validity of the information they receive. They are ridiculed. However, the children who blindly accept the information as true and merely regurgitate the information on command when it is time to take a test, those children go on to become the decision makers in our government, law, medicine, business, and every other occupation with power and prestige. The most detrimental effect of being pushed away from holistic thinking with the full brain into a strictly left brain thought is what is known as the suppression of the feminine. Every male and female have both feminine and masculine qualities. It has nothing to do with man or woman. These are represented by the left and right brain, yin and yang, black and white, light and dark, and most every other duality. Both are vital to our spiritual and physical health. So the intangible parts of our existence, such as emotions, are part of the true reality of higher consciousness. If emotions are part of a realm that we cannot experience with our five senses, then how is it that we are all aware of our emotions? What most people believe to be emotions are not truly the emotion itself. What we are experiencing is the physical manifestation of these emotions. Anger causes disturbance in the psyche, which manifests itself in the ego. These manifestations cause the heart rate to increase, body temperature to rise, and spawn many other physical traits that signify anger. Just as music from the radio is a physical manifestation of an intangible signal, our experience of emotion is the physical manifestation of an intangible signal as well. It has been shown that our emotions have a vibratory frequency to them. Furthermore, there are only two emotions that humankind experiences: fear and love. All other emotions branch either directly or indirectly from these two emotions. Fear has a long and slow frequency vibration to it, while love has a very rapid and high frequency. To show that vibration is the very foundation of existence, Hans Jenne developed what is known as Cymatics in the 1940s to show that when vibrations of sound are passed through a form of media, there is a set pattern that will follow. When the frequency increases, the media develops into a more complex pattern. This is precisely what is happening to our Earth and to humanity. There are 64 possible codes of amino acids in our DNA structure made from 4 elements: carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen. By any means of logic, we should have all 64 codes activated within our DNA structure. Yet we presently only have 20 active codes.
And of these 64 possibilities, it appears that only 20 of these codes are turned on right now for us, the 20 amino acids. There is a switch that turns off and turns on where those coding sites lie, and that the switch for that turning off and turning on is what we call emotion. And this is the first time that we've ever seen the patterns of emotion directly physically linked to human genetic material. Well, fear is a long, slow wave of emotion. So this wave of fear is a long, slow wave and touches relatively few sites on this DNA. So an individual living in fear is limited to the number of antennae that they have available to them, whereas an individual living in the pattern of love, this is love in DNA, you can see it's a higher frequency, shorter wavelength. We have many more potential sites for coding along that genetic pattern. This information, this is amazing. This is the first time we've ever had a hard digital link between emotion and genetics.
This is important to understand because another researcher named Vladimir Popanov measured tiny particles of light called photons inside a vacuum tube. The photons were scattered as expected. A sample of DNA was then entered into the vacuum tube and they measured the photons again. They found that the particles of light align themselves along the axis of the DNA. Then, as they removed the DNA sample, the photons remained aligned to the same form of the DNA, even though no DNA was present. This is what is known as the phantom DNA experiment. Science has now bridged a very important gap between physical and ethereal, or spiritual. Our emotions directly affect the structure of our DNA, which directly shapes the physical world we experience every day. So the messages left by the ancients that we've explained here were more than just prophecies about a one-world government or a new world order. We now understand why the study of the heavenly bodies were so important. The rotation and orbit of all that makes up our universe serves as a clock to map changes and transitions. This helped the ancients understand that the change of the heavenly bodies were a mirror to the changes of all existence.
Ron Sakeley, Department Chairman, Chemistry, University of California, Berkeley, showed that DNA acts as an antenna for cellular upregulation. The primary function they taught us about what DNA is about. It's a receiver and transmitter of photons, light, and phonon sound. For what? Cellular upregulation, meaning that they're water molecules, the pyramid power around the DNA spiral energizing strands are taking in the spiritual energy of love vibrations and then sending it out for manifesting, precipitating in a quantum field the physical matter of the body. These are hertz frequencies or cycles per second that the musicians can retune their instruments to play and experiment with. Why? Again, these are the Creator's musical scale, the original solfeggio, buried for 3,000 years in the Bible. So the ancient priests who knew how to levitate the huge stones for the building of the pyramids and the Masonic knowledge that predated ancient Egypt, the ability to have this information, these frequencies, serve the function of creation, destruction, and miracles on behalf of the empowered people who had access to this knowledge.
So could chanting texts or scriptures like the ancient Aramaic priests, speakers, etc. used to do, maybe Islam as well, maybe that's a frequency? This is very interesting. Maybe it's more than just a chant or a song, it's actually a frequency of sound, maybe.
I say that because of this metaphor. This is the difference between the power of our Creator and anything else, particularly evil. That you can go into a pitch black room full of evil, full of darkness, and light a little candle, and instantly that darkness flees. But you can't do the opposite. You can't go into a well-lit room full of truth and wisdom and righteousness and joy and health and harmony with the universal power. You can't take any amount of darkness and go into that well-lit room and have any effect whatsoever. That is the metaphor which I frequently think of when I think that I'm not empowered. It is the greatest lesson for me, and I think for everybody else, to know that we're on the winning side and that we win in the end.
As you are watching this, understand that it is not a fight to be fought. It is not a war to be waged. No gun rights have to be exercised. Not a finger has to be lifted. Most people wonder how one person can make a difference. They ask that if all this is so simple and this information is available, why hasn't someone else conquered their fears and changed the world for everyone else? This is the most difficult and beautiful conundrum to our lives. Your reality affects you and only you. Your curiosity has led you to this genre of information to serve a very specific purpose in your life.
want to finish this?
Finish what?
Telling you what I know.
What makes you think what you know is any different than what other people know?
I had different teachers.
And all credit to KilluminatiTheMovie for bringing this, uploading this mini-series. Brilliant. Okay, we hope that we don't occur a copy strike or a copyright claim because of these attribution non-commercial licenses. We hope that you enjoyed this particular video that we presented you. If we don't incur a copyright strike claim or whatever, we may bring you part 2. Ancient knowledge, Fibonacci sequence, golden ratio, fire in nature, DNA, fingerprint of God, then 3, then 4 in this series. So if you enjoyed this particular video, give us subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up or a like, and then add your comments below in the comment section, so we'll get back to you on those ASAP, or as soon as we can. And then go share this particular video with your family, friends and others. They need to watch this, they need to know this, and plus it's really, really interesting. We found it brilliant, mind-blowing. Hopefully you found it the same.